Welcome back to Beyond the Deal, the podcast where we go past the transactions, past the titles, and into the stories that actually shape who we become. Because the truth is, success is never just about the deal. It's about what it costs you, what it builds in you, and who you become on the other side of it. Today's guest is someone who knows that journey firsthand. Dr. David White's path into medicine was rooted in a desire to care for people. But over time, that calling took him into some of the most intense and formative environments of that imaginable. As a founding member of a special operations surgical team in the early 2000s, he experienced firsthand what it means to operate under pressure, make critical decisions, and carry the weight of responsibility in moments that truly matter. From the outside, a career in medicine can look like structure, systems, and clinical expertise. But like so many paths centered around people, there's a deeper story unfolding beneath the surface. After years in the ER, David stepped away from traditional medicine to build something different, founding Aspire Care with a vision to provide a more holistic, integrated approach to health through primary care, urgent care, counseling, and fitness. It was a model designed not just to treat symptoms, but to care for the whole person. And now he's stepping into yet another new chapter with the launch of Fat Koi, a brand that reflects not just his professional evolution, but a deeper why behind the work he's doing. But this conversation isn't just about medicine or business. It's about calling, reinvention, and what it looks like to evolve when the path you started on no longer fully fits who you've become. It's about caring for people in high-stakes environments, and then learning how to care differently when the environment changes. So whether you're in healthcare, building something new, or navigating a season of transition, this episode is going to meet you there. I'm Lacey Labs here with my co-host Laura Martin. Let's get into it. Dr. David White, welcome to Beyond the Deal. It's great to have you with us this morning.
Really good to be here. Thank you.
Have you. Let's get started. Just tell us a little bit about your background, how you started in life and how you ended up in medicine.
I grew up in Western Pennsylvania in a small town called Ligonier Valley. And I tell people I grew up in the suburbs of that small town, which means I grew up in the woods. So very rural, and my life was spent just roaming the fields and the hills and the streams. I went to Penn State. Eventually, and I walked onto the Penn State wrestling team, and that was really the focus of my life at that time. I studied criminology, of all things. Spent 5 years because of my athletic eligibility. Graduated and was not convinced that I wanted to do law enforcement, which was the original plan. Married my wife, who has now been my wife for almost 37 years. And really kind of debated what was next. And she and I were watching a PBS special about med school. And I said, you know what, I think if I had to do it over, I would have stayed in medicine. And she said one word to me. She said, well, wow, that was it. And I'm like, wow, okay, well, what? And so I began to look into it. And so I went back to school at the University of Pittsburgh. Did a research there with the transplant immunology team for about 3 years, got into med school. And by the time I started med school, I was 28, and we had our first child. He was about 6 months old. And my wife really had hoped to stay home with the kids. And so we sought a scholarship program through the military. It's called the Health Professions Scholarship Program. And I was awarded that scholarship. And so the Air Force paid for my education. Oh. And then in exchange, once I finished my residency training, which I trained in emergency medicine, I owed them 4 years of active duty service. Mm-hmm. But I think my love of medicine was really rooted into my childhood. I remember getting my CPR card when I was probably, 15 or something, and witnessed somebody fall over in the street. And just, I've written about this in an essay, just where I pulled my wallet out and I pulled my card out, and I just kind of froze there. I had my CPR card, but I remember thinking how I really desired to be able to intervene. And I was very aware of my fear, how my fear had paralyzed me in that moment. And so that's where my mind began to set on how can I be prepared to intervene on behalf of people. And so a big piece of my medicine journey has been rooted in coming alongside people in crisis. I really enjoy the crisis element of it, coming alongside them. And I'm very much an introvert. And so the idea of being in deep relationship with a lot of people over a long period of time is very exhausting to me. But if I can dip in and out in a measured way, I'm able to sustain those relationships that way. And so emergency medicine allowed me to do that.
So you were just telling us, I think, off camera that this kind of came a little later, and you just sort of said it too. You graduated the degree in criminology, did some work, then went back to med school. So you finished med school in your 30s, I would assume?
So I finished med school. Yes, I was 32 when I got my MD. You are a doctor, which is just when you know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
And then from med school, everybody chooses a residency path. So if I want to be a general surgeon, I do 5 years of training. If I want to be a neurosurgeon, I might do 7 years of training or 8 years. In emergency medicine, it's anywhere between 3 and 4 years, depending on the program. And so when I finished my residency training then, I would have been 35.
Okay.
And I talk to young people about that all the time, even my own sons who are now 32, 30, and 28.
Yeah.
Just that, get a lot of life left.
Yeah.
And because people get very anxious about where they are at 30 or 32 or 35. And I really was just entering into my professional role at 35 years old. Yeah. But all the years prior to that mattered deeply as a father, as a husband, and just as a person where I got to express all my love and delight in the things of life, even before med school. So, so I've never really lamented that. And I remember, do you remember Dear Abby?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Back in the day in the newspaper, a little column where people would pose questions to Abby and she would offer counsel. And a person posed the question, hey, I'm 35 and I'm thinking about making this career change. And if I do that, by the time I finish, I'll be 41. And her answer was very simple. She said, well, that's 6 years from now, you'll be 41. How old will you be in 6 years if you don't do this? Point is, time is going to pass regardless.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do with those hours and those days and those months?
So you joined the Air Force?
I did. So I owed them time. And while my wife expressed some angst about that option, I remember her asking me, well, what if we go to war? As we contemplated whether that was a good idea or not. Mm-hmm. And my famous quote was, what are the odds? Well, my first day of active duty was September 11th, 2001.
Was?
Yeah, so I was on base. The base got locked down. So she was home with the kids. I was locked down on base. And that really just changed the course of things. Yeah. And for me professionally, though those were very tragic and difficult circumstances, it was really quite fortuitous for me professionally.
Yeah.
It really led to one of the most robust personal and professional expressions I've ever had in my life, which was to be a part of a medical team serving the soldiers overseas. So
you were overseas?
Yeah, so I spent my first year right after 9/11 just working full-time in the base emergency room, which is a big, robust hospital. We were down on the panhandle of Florida, Eglin Air Force Base, and then was tasked to help build a team. The Surgeon General for the Air Force had an idea that we were sending these special operators over. There's the conventional military, then there's special operators. Well, special operators, all soldiers are of great value. Special operators require a long pathway and a lot of money investment in this specialized soldier. Mm-hmm. And they were going to far forward places and really devoid of medical care. And so the idea was to build a surgical team, a trauma team that could go far forward to those locations to give point of impact care. Mm-hmm. And so I was tasked, among some others, to begin to think about this process and put those teams together. And initially I was asked, do you want to be on the team? Anything in special operations is volunteer because of the potential risk. Yeah. And though my heart leapt in my chest to do it, I had 3 sons at that point.
Little.
And I felt, they were young, and I felt the weight of that and really had to wrestle with, well, somebody's got to do it. Who does it? Maybe it's not me. And so I said no initially. And then probably a month or two later was called into an office with 3 or 4 colonels, and they said, General so-and-so gave us your name as somebody would like to be on these teams. Wow. Bear in mind, it's volunteer. Some people call that being voluntold. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it was truly, they really wanted me to contemplate it. And so I went back and really sought a lot of counsel and talked to my wife a lot about it and really wrestled deeply, and I got counsel that, no, you're a father and a husband first. You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Other people saying this is consistent with who you are. And so I eventually said yes, and really was the best decision ever could have made. It was just really an incredible season of life for us as a family, oddly enough, and professionally for me as an expression. So those teams are called Special Operations Surgical Teams. And at the time, it's morphed a little bit since that time, but at the time it was a 5-member team with a trauma surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, emergency medicine physician, anesthesia provider, and an OR tech. And that group of 5 would deploy far forward and set up wherever we needed to for to provide care if needed. And we were just an immediate support source for those troops. And that took me in 2003 to northern Iraq, where the Army 10 Special Forces group took our group, which was an Air Force group, and took us with them to northern Iraq, where we worked alongside the Kurds in that area.
Wow.
And that was just an amazing time, really, really amazing. And then that just led to other opportunities to express medicine with that team in different venues. So really delightful.
Wow. Then how did you end up in Central Pennsylvania?
It's funny. I ask myself that question a lot. Like I said, I grew up in Pittsburgh. My wife and I, she's from State College. We met at Penn State.
Right.
And
I knew her parents were State
yes,
College.
and our plan was always to go back. We love State College. The plan was to go back there, even though I trained in Philly. And after the military, I really just delighted in my time working with the Kurdish people and really desired for my family to have a taste of experience of giving up of ourselves, serving along another people. And so we explored options, and we had a friend on Navajo Nation. So we ultimately decided to go to Navajo Nation, where I worked as an attending physician in a very robust, very remote hospital setting.
Out west.
Northeast Arizona.
Wow.
And Navajo Nation covers Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, and Colorado. And we were close to that Four Corners region. And that was a really, really amazing time for us. It was hard in some ways, but it was also just really, really rich for us. When we decided to leave, the decision was whether we went back to Florida, where we had really built a community over the years before, or to go back to family, which was now in South Central Pennsylvania. And we ultimately decided to come back here, obviously. And it's really been wonderful. I mean, I really wrestled with the decision when we first got here. I was an attending physician at Hershey Med in the ER, the Department of Emergency Medicine, and really was not certain that was the best decision that we had made. But ultimately, it was a great decision. It just worked itself out, and we've been here now for almost 20 years.
Time goes quick.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in that time, you did eventually leave the ER into a more entrepreneurial pursuit. So tell us a little bit about that part of your story.
Yeah, that was, so I was an attending physician at Hershey Med.
Yeah.
I made the transition to what was then Pinnacle Health, so Harrisburg Hospital. That was my primary location. And I really loved being in an urban setting and having more flexibility than I had just for me to practice than I was having in an academic center. Loved the teaching, loved the interaction with residents, but just wanted the more hands-on in a different patient group demographic. But after a couple years there, just began to have this itch inside me to express a different aspect of medicine. And it just so happened that a good friend, Rich Rayner, family medicine physician, was leaving Hershey Med to go out and start a private practice. He was looking at private practice opportunities, and then he and I were talking one day, and I just said, why don't we do something together? Why don't you do, the family medicine stuff, and we'll kind of create some sort of acute care, urgent care type thing. We really didn't have a clear vision. It was just an idea. But I was able to say that because of that itch that I referenced. And I remember very distinctly being in the ER at Harrisburg Hospital on an overnight, and a patient came in who was just morbidly obese, severe congestive heart failure, a lot of other comorbidities. And seeing that individual, I turned when I heard somebody saying, "Help me, help me, help me." And what I saw was this individual laying flat on their back, which is not a good position to be in when you have a lot of fluid in your lungs and that sort of thing with congestive heart failure. But I took note of the fact that the patient could not go from a laying position to a sitting position without help. And this was probably a 55-year-old person. Mm-hmm. And with no sense in my heart of shame on you, you shouldn't be there, there was just a deep sense of sadness that this didn't need to be.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And what was it that led? What was the story from childhood to that point that led to that moment?
Yeah.
And can that be affected in some way? And I'm by no means the long-term maintenance super. Let me give you lots of health advice kind of guy, but I do like to engage that process in a very different way. Whereas like a Rich Rayner invests in people over decades. Mm-hmm. My sense is coming along people very quickly trying to discern who and how and why they are, and then moving them forward from there. And so when Rich and I founded Aspire, again, it was family medicine and urgent care under one roof, two sides of the building, two different businesses, but there was just a very natural interface there where you have the ongoing maintenance care, but also the let's intervene when something comes up, when illness or injury interferes with life, I'll be there. But foundational to that idea was this idea that our wellness is more about the choices we make than anything else. More than genetics, more than gender, more than life experiences. It's the choices we make that will most affect our health and wellness. Now, yes, injury will happen, illness will happen that maybe has nothing to do with that, and that's just a part of living in this fractured world. But for the most part, and there is a definitive, well-supported, well-documented pattern of it's the choices we make more than anything else. And so I remember talking to a healthcare provider, a third-party payer, health insurance company executive who said, that concept will never work. People, they just don't care. And the reason for that was a lot of times they would offer, hey, we'll pay for your gym membership. We'll give you this incentive. What's missing is entering into that person's life and understanding the core beliefs that are driving decisions. So that was that became a passion for Rich and I both to lean in and really understand, okay, what are your core beliefs? A person might say, well, my grandfather died at 50, my father died at 50. Clearly I'm going to die at 50. It doesn't matter if I smoke or run out in traffic. I'm dying before 50. But that's not true.
Yeah.
And so that's a simple example of the decisions that people make. But oftentimes it has to do with core beliefs about why they're there. Like, why do I exist? Do I have purpose, value, meaning? Does anybody care that I'm here? Because if nobody else cares, I don't care. And so it was really entering into those spaces. So we had this pattern that we had established of our goal was to know our patients, to really get to know them well. Once we know them, now we can understand maybe how we might be able to inspire them so that they would aspire, so they inspire them to aspire, and then provide the resources, not to do anything for them, but to provide the resources, whether that's counseling services, whether that's physical therapy, whether that's actual fitness and wellness activities, movement, and then as they change, there's a progression of knowing them in a different context now, and then re-inspiring, and this cycle that sets up over many years. And it is a long-term investment. It is not the kind of thing that insurance companies love to pay for.
Yep.
It really was a passion of the heart, to person by person by person by person, and being willing to accept that some people will choose. They won't choose wellness.
Yeah.
And that's okay. There's no, my judging them has no value. All I can do is say, hey, I appreciate where you are. What I pursued was knowing them in that context.
Very unique approach.
It was very, very satisfying expression of medicine. Again, I love the critical intervention. The surprise for me was, because I love that critical intervention, I liked being hands-on, very skilled, physical. I think when we started the business, I said to Rich, Rich, I think I can do urgent care for 5 years and then I'll be out. Because I think that's all I can do. I really need to go back to this identity that I had built. And 17 years later, I was still at it. And what I've shared is that the big discovery, the surprise for me was literally over 100,000 times closing a door or pulling a curtain with an individual or a couple or a family, it might be for something very simple like a sprained ankle or a sinus infection, but always seeking an opportunity to know them. Mm-hmm. And it's a unique privilege where I can walk in and they know that I have, at least I hope they know that I have their best interest at heart. And so I can ask very personal questions very quickly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I would make a habit of really trying to know something about every patient that came in. It didn't always happen. Sometimes it got so busy it was just moving quickly. But as it turned out, I had lots of opportunity to know people through the years, and it was those conversations that I found very inspiring and satisfying, and exhausting.
Yeah.
There were times I would come out of a conversation completely exhausted and have another 20 patients to see.
Yeah.
And the challenge there is when I get home, having anything left to
pour into your family.
Yeah, to pour into the family. So it was. It ended up being very surprisingly satisfying, and it kept me in there.
I love that.
Yeah.
When Bryn was little, she's gonna be 25. I don't know how old she was. She was at CCA, but she got a stick jammed into her, and we came in. You sewed her up. I knew it wasn't a bandage repair when I looked at the wound.
Yeah, those are
but
bad.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I that's maybe a simple intervention, but always something I've enjoyed very much.
That's great. I love that.
How did you see patients respond to that? On the other side of it, you were sitting on the doctor's side, right? But what was that experience from your perception for them? Because to me, I'm like, that sounds amazing. Like I would want that out of any kind of medical interaction that I was having.
Yeah, I think what was so impactful is I just gave probably a month ago, I gave a lecture to a group of family medicine residents, and what I decided to focus on was how do you do this for the next 20 or 30 years? Because it's just hard. Mm-hmm. You spend a lot of time, money, effort getting your degree, and then you go through residency, which is brutal. And then you have the practice of medicine, which is just very difficult, very time consuming. There are a lot of constraints, a lot of pressures, a lot of responsibility, always at risk of being accused of being negligent or uncaring or unloving. Yep. And so how do you sustain? And what it boiled down to is that people want to be seen and known. We are made to be relational. I was made to be in relationship. I would offer that I was made first to be in relationship with God, and then one another. Mm-hmm. And all of us are that way. Even the most reclusive person was made to be in relationship. And so in those interactions with people where I would make them feel seen, and not in any kind of manufactured way, but just really with a eagerness to understand it. Like, who are you? Mm-hmm. Like, where's this coming from? And we would often talk in our practice about it seems cliche almost, but everybody's got a story.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And it's really true. And even you just never know where if somebody comes in angry, frustrated, irritated, it's amazing. There's a proverb that says a soft answer turns away wrath. Yeah. And I think it's not a trick. It's actually a tender engagement of that person's heart. Another proverb is gracious words are a honeycomb. They're sweetness to the soul, healing to the bone. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not a manipulative trick. It's just saying like, hey, I'm gonna say I see you, mm-hmm. and oftentimes will quiet people. And so the experience of some people are just so angry that they're just stomp out and write a bad review no matter what. I remember walking out of a room once and there's by no means tooting my horn. This person said, "You're the best doctor I've ever had." Mm-hmm. And I was in a really bad mood. Mm-hmm. And I remember it made me mad that they said that because we addressed this very simple issue. It wasn't, I think it was a day that maybe I was missing the substance of emergency medicine and maybe it was just my own sense of self feeling like I needed a boost to, I used to do important things kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that person shared that with me. And again, my first reaction was anger because like, what did I do? I did nothing. And then, but I reflected on it later, and really what I did is I just communicated kindly to that person, even in my bad mood. And it was a very very strong wake up moment is that this is medicine. This is what it looks like to care for people. Lots of other things, drugs and meds and procedures and surgeries and all the things are critical and can be professionally satisfying. But when it comes down to it, it's people want to be known. Do I matter? Do I matter to anyone? And just being able to offer that, I think, in an authentic way was very satisfying for me as a physician, but it was also satisfying for them. And I think it also, and as I was communicating to the residents, you have to keep the human experience at the very front of everything you're doing, because people are going to be mean to you. They're going to accuse you of things. They're not going to do what you tell them to do. But be curious. Be really curious about that person in front of you. And I often shared a story with our staff and with new staff and residents that had a gentleman come in one time, and he had a really bad rash and was just very uncomfortable. And he had a bill due. And it was our practice to say, hey, you have a balance due. Would you like to pay that? And the staff person asked kindly, and he just went crazy, mad, stormed out of the building, came back with cash in his hand and threw it at her physically, with choice words. And so I was told about this, and so I went to see him, and I made the decision, hey, number one, I'm going to just take care of him, make sure he's okay. And just really leaned in. And then I said to him, like, hey, you really came on strong. It sounds like you sounded really upset and frustrated. Can you tell me about that? And he just burst into tears and said his daughter had taken her life 2 weeks prior.
Oh my gosh.
He had just written a very large check to pay off a debt of hers that morning. And he's grieving. He put himself in a very stressful financial situation. The first thing we ask him for is money. So he just wept and shared the story, and I affirmed that, and he apologized to me and the staff and everybody. And now, it doesn't always end that way,
right?
But it does really characterize that there is a story leading to that moment. And that's true whether somebody cuts you off in traffic or reacts harshly to you in a line, or there's a story leading to that moment. And that story sometimes goes back an hour. Sometimes that story goes back decades. And so if we're curious and don't take those things personally, it gives us an opportunity to care well for people.
It sounds like a very unique approach. And the fact that it was emergency medicine, so it was quick. We clearly have a gift to get in there and get to the root of things.
In emergency medicine as a field, there's a high value placed on moving quickly. And I was not the fastest guy in the ER because I would take those extra minutes. You take too long, then you're just creating harm and injury other ways. But so there's a balance there. It's hard. It can be really hard to balance.
Cool. Now, are you still in active medicine?
So I just officially retired from the clinical medicine, but I'm still licensed, boarded, all those things. And it's always possible that I would go back to that role. It was a hard decision to make, but I just felt like there were some transitions that we made as a business. We sold the urgent care part. The family medicine piece had spun off. I don't do family medicine. And going back to the ER after, even though I would dip in and out, it's really a field that you have to be present often and to maintain those skills. It's akin to, when you ever found yourself driving home from work and you don't remember any part of the drive, you just did all the stuff. There's a certain part of medicine that's way too, where you just respond because it's your brain and your body are finely tuned towards those responses and actions. The further I got along and the less I was in the ER full time, the more I was aware of every turn, every bump, every change of lanes, all the stuff. And I just felt like it really, I'm not enjoying that. And it's not really fair for me to be the one there. So I stepped away at the end of January of this year. And I've often referred to my wife saying I'm not retired, I'm unemployed. And so that's where we're kind of now. I'm making a transition to a different business that has nothing to do with medicine.
Now, are you doing consulting or anything for people?
What I do is I'm an internal expert with the state. And so the state of Pennsylvania has attorneys that review every patient complaint that's filed against a provider's license and every lawsuit that is filed, whether frivolous or otherwise. They all get reviewed. And for obvious reason, just trying to watch for patterns where people might be consistently making mistakes or bad choices or some patterns of behavior that need to be addressed. And so I'm the expert in the ear of the attorney to translate medical information and say, hey, this is standard of care. This is not.
You're staying engaged.
Yes. And my brain works well that way. It can take a lot of information, whittle it down into a summary statement. And I do enjoy that. It's heavy brain work, but I do enjoy it.
That's great.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you are on a new entrepreneurial suit that is maybe tangential, but pretty different, right? So
Quite different.
tell us about Fat Koi and kind of why and what and all of the...
Yeah. So I really, my brain forever and ever has always, it's just constantly thinking of ideas. And I know there are a lot of people that way. A lot of us think of ideas, or boy, I wish there was something that did this, or we need one of those. The difference is that who's going to step forward and actually make an effort to affect that.
Yeah.
And it's a very small slice of people. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the entrepreneurial elements of having a medical practice. The challenge there is I was very patient focused and I was full-time clinically. And so the entrepreneurial expression of that is we were always thinking of curious ideas and we had this really amazing concept of how to really provide an experience for people. But we were really focused patient by patient by patient. So my heart has been to really have another entrepreneurial expression that does not necessarily involve the intensity of face-to-face patient care, dealing with third-party payers and deductibles and co-pays and all those things. And so I went to my brothers. We have two local brothers, and we got in the car and drove to the Jersey Shore to do some surfing for a weekend. And while this is about 2 years ago, and I said, I'm in medicine, Nate, my brother, you're in education, the other brother, Matt, is in fitness and wellness. We know that there's friction, there's problems. We're always encountering problems, and we're always talking about how to fix those problems. I'd like to find a problem and fix it. And we wanted to tie that to areas of passion, and which is really the outdoors for us. We spend a lot of time outdoors, whether it's biking, hiking, camping, climbing, surfing, whatever the case may be. We love the outdoors, and it's something that we share in. And so that's how we ended up going in that direction and birthing Fat Koi. And the first product, the company that we're creating, Fat Koi, is really at its core an outdoor gear and apparel company. That's the core of what we're going to do. And we want to bring apparel and gear to the market that addresses specific problems. So identify an itch or a friction point, solve that so that that outdoor experience is more fluid, getting rid of the bad pain so that we can pursue the good pain, so to speak. And so our first product will be basically essentially like a camelback, which people use for biking and hiking and that sort of thing. We're taking that concept and refining it so that it's the best expression for camping and hiking. Integrating a camelback into a backpack is challenging, and we've solved the problem. It's going to be an incredible product. That'll come out this summer, and that's really just our entry point. Yeah. We have a lot of ideas related to a variety of outdoor venues, but this is our entry point, and we're super excited about it. It's primarily my brother Nathan and I. So he's a teacher at Camp Hill High School, and he's a brilliant guy, beloved there. But he also has a lot of those entrepreneurial itches, and so that first product should come to market late summer.
So is it in production? Is it pre-selling?
It's right now. It's in its final stages of development.
Okay.
So we had our idea, and there's a whole realm of science out there for product engineering. Yeah. And so went to these engineers and said, this is our idea. This is what we need to be there. And then they're materials experts. And so we've been working with them for an extended time. And we're right at that point of of completion, and then working with a manufacturer in Oregon, and then going from there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Then how do you already know how you're going to market it? How you're going to?
I think we'll go direct to consumer initially. But we definitely want to build relationships with.
Be on Shark Tank or something.
Yeah, we need to have some sales before going on sales. They're mean if you don't.
Yeah.
But I think our goal is really to generate kind of groundswell direct to consumer, and we would be very happy for like a big box partnership, so an REI type, as an example. We will be going to the big outdoor retail show in Minneapolis in August, where pretty much everybody goes to showcase and
New products, or just in general? It's
in general. It's the biggest one in the world,
Okay.
and there is a segment for new companies, and so we'll be in that section.
That's exciting.
But it'll give us opportunities to interface with many.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Do you have other ideas
we do.
swirling?
Yeah, we do. We have a list.
That's great.
Yeah, some of those will peel directly
Yes.
off of the first product, and
Yeah.
others are completely unrelated. They're just things that relate to other
exciting.
things we like to do. Yeah,
Do you have like a website?
we do. It's fatkoi.com.
And it's FAT?
KOI.
Like
yes,
fish.
Fat Koi. Yeah. So people are like, why Fat Koi?
Yeah, tell us.
Well, beyond just a jacket, a hydration system, some other interesting item, we really have this foundational heart. The question that often gets asked, like, what's your why? That's the big Simon Sinek brought that really forward, and what's your why? And I think in talking with my oldest son a couple of years ago about my practice of medicine and some of the things we were doing there, he gave the greatest summary. He said, it sounds like your heart is to connect people to the purpose and value that life inherently holds.
Wow.
It's like bingo.
It's like it should be your tagline, if
Yes.
it's not.
It's not our tagline, but
Wow.
it is. It does summarize the why for sure, and that was actually my why for medicine, wanting to connect people to the purpose and value that life inherently holds, and I believe that's given by God, and that's how we're made, but it's a very practical, accessible concept. We all long for purpose, value, and meaning, and so with Fat Koi, while it does have spiritual and philosophical ramifications, what we want to do is really invite people into that concept in a practical way, especially as relates to the outdoors. And I would say there's sort of three main prongs there. One is the capacity to move. The experience of movement is delightful, it's beautiful, and it's freeing. I see that in medicine is when people would lose the capacity to get off the commode.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden they're dependent on somebody else for that capacity to move, and so really we would encourage people to pursue and train for the ability to move well through a lifetime. Well, that applies clearly to the outdoors, whether you're walking, standing, climbing, running, swimming, biking, surfing, whatever the case may be. Those experiences of movement are just so delightful and so freeing and so wonderful. Even just getting up and going for a walk is a beautiful expression, and it's something that people, when they lose that capacity, long for it again. And so we want to recognize that that's a beautiful expression. We want to encourage people to move, transition that movement to the outdoors, get outside. The second piece of that is that resilience is naturally born out of hardship. Hardship might be imposed on us through an illness, injury, or other life circumstance, relationship, fracture, anything, family tragedy, or that hardship can be chosen. I can try to do a hard thing. I can challenge myself. I can pursue wellness. I can climb a mountain. But regardless, that hardship is naturally going to birth resilience. And resilience is that steadiness, that stability under pressure. A number of years ago, a gentleman named Nassim Taleb wrote a book called Anti-Fragile. And the whole concept of anti-fragile is not the opposite of fragile, which is something that breaks easily under pressure. The opposite of that is resilience, which is stable under pressure. The human experience is really anti-fragile. It's how we're made, is that we actually grow. We become stronger under pressure. So there's an improving, there's a betterment that happens under pressure. And that is absolutely true in the physical expressions and then through hardship. either in life we become wiser through difficult circumstances, or we become stronger through that pressing back against the hardship. The last piece is that purpose is best expressed and seen when movement and resilience are experienced in the context of others. So community, relationship. That together is what we're wanting to promote in a time when we are becoming more and more isolated, where experiences of life are becoming more and more virtual. What we want to bring people get up, get out, get together, and do hard things. Yeah. And we're going to work as a company to give you products. They're going to take that bad pain, the thing that's causing friction or irritation, so that you can go out there and choose good pain, which is doing hard things. And just a classic example is, one of my sons and my brother and I went out for a long camping experience and excursion, and we got stuck in the rain and the snow, and the water was high, and we were doing cold water crossings, freezing. We had to build a fire with wet wood, and when it was all said and done, days later, we get back to the car, and my fob doesn't work. We have no phone service, so we're freezing and tired and couldn't get in the car. But the truth is, while we will remember moments of warmth, we will remember a beautiful sunset or a soft snow in the midst of that, what we talk about most is the shared experience of hardship. Mm-hmm. And we laugh about it, and we laugh about somebody's response, and we remember when, and I was so grumpy at that moment. I didn't even want to be there. But then this happened, and so it's those experiences are just so beautiful to share. And I think that's how life is meant to be. Intimacy, my father used to say that intimacy is the experiencing of one another in the now. Mm-hmm. It's one thing if I tell you, last week I was really sad about something. Mm-hmm. It's another thing if I'm weeping in front of you, sharing my pain. And so the outdoor experience, whether it's hiking or something very simple, there's a shared experience there. We're pursuing something together. We're pursuing betterment together. And so these are the roots of fat koi. The koi, classically, the legend of the koi is that this big group of koi are swimming upstream, and they get to a waterfall, and they have to get up and over the waterfall. And the hardship of swimming against stream, many drop off, but many stay together. And then one finally gets up this waterfall, and having endured, is rewarded by becoming this golden dragon. So there's this evolution that happens. But even though all the ones down here may not have climbed the waterfall and become the dragon, so to speak, there was a community connection that led the one to be there, to get there. So that's the legend of the koi. Mm-hmm. I won't tell the story. Like, that koi has roots that's completely unrelated to that's been in our family for years. However, it is very fitting that there's movement, that's swimming together. Yeah. There's overcoming a downstream flow to get up the river. There's hardship there, and they get stronger and stronger and stronger as they go. And then there's this, it's done in community, and there's connection. And so the one that survived because, or accomplished because of the community. Yeah. And so all share in that.
It's hard to name a company, it's hard to come up with that, but that one I think is memorable. It's not hard to forget.
We get asked,
which is key.
Yeah, we do get asked a lot, and we're very grateful for that. Yeah, it just felt right.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I was rocking my sweatshirt yesterday and getting compliments on it.
Nice.
That's fat koi. That's so cool. The big koi fish on the back in the red.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're glad for you to wear that.
Brand. Yeah. If you want to get some,
That's
you can buy it.
Fatkoi.com.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you two kind of closer questions. So the first one is just, what advice would you give to people who are younger than you, maybe mid-30s, right? Or maybe 20s or whatever stage, maybe 40s, changing career, starting career, pursuing care of people, right? It could be medicine, it could be more tangentially related, but pressing into that career and seeing in themselves like, this is a calling, this is where I'm going. What would you say to them? Where would you direct their thinking, their heart, their career aspirations? Like, what advice would you give?
We were talking beforehand a little bit, just that sometimes it feels like it's too late. Mm-hmm. people often have this feeling, oh, it's too late. I really wish I would have. And regret becomes a theme. And I recently just did a series of posts on this idea of regret, in that regret's inevitable because we're only aware of regret once we're beyond something. It's not something we anticipate. It's a retrospective view of like, oh shoot, I should have done this. But it's also rooted in, we imagine what would have been had we made that choice, and we don't know that what we imagine happening. But what we can do is we can look back and say, interesting, I really wish I would have made that choice. I see how not making that choice negatively affected me or maybe somebody else, and I don't want that to happen again. And so those experiences inform the present, which is wisdom, experiential knowledge. And so, number one, again, it can sound cliche. It's never too late. For some things, it is too late, but there are expressions that can be pursued. So, somebody who's looking at a career change, oftentimes it's because they're either burned out in a career field just by the nature of the field, or because maybe it was a bad fit to begin with.
Right.
And I think it's okay to be honest with yourself and say, okay, this, as much as I wanted to be this or express that, it really is not my shtick. And I think it's time for me to make a choice. And that is okay. I used to I still talk frequently with a gentleman who's a kind of counselor, executive coach type person. And he would often say to me, David, catch yourself in the act of being you. Take notice when you are being you. And that was really critical for me to say, okay, this is who I am. And these are natural expressions of who I am. And so it makes sense that I would want to pursue this. And so I think my encouragement to people in general is, while I can't necessarily dictate a path for them, is be attentive to who you are. Catch yourself in the act of being you. What is it that you're noticing about what you do like or don't like, or what you're good at or not good at? And then, like we said earlier, time is going to pass no matter what you decide to do. So if you think, well, I'm not going to do that because it's going to take 5 years and then I'll be 51.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You're going to be 51 in 5 years anyway.
Yeah. And it goes quick.
And it goes absolutely. It flies by. So I think be a student of yourself, seek a lot of counsel, and be willing to risk and do hard things. Because even if it's not successful, there will be tremendous value that is gleaned from the experience and the pursuit, for sure. I don't know that Fat Koi is going to work, and that's scary. There are times where I feel absolutely convinced that this is the best thing ever, and then I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and say, what am I doing?
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. I'll be 60 in next month, and what am I doing?
Yeah.
But my hope, what I'm committed to, is that what my longing has been is that all the things that I've been doing for the past 30 years in this field, in the years before that of just living life, some things I did great, some things I didn't do well. But my desire for me is in these last years, whether that's a day or 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, is I really hope to have this redemptive expression of all those things in this next phase of life. Taking the things that I've learned and experienced and pushing them forward to somebody else, or this next opportunity or this next experience. And so I think that's just me being a student of myself. And so I say, David, why are you doing this at 60 years old? Because that's who I am. That's who I am. Yeah. And that's what brings me delight. Yeah. It's the creative process, doing that in partnership with my brother. And it's just been really delightful. So it's hard to know without a specific circumstance, but at the same time, it's just encouraging people, don't worry about time, and certainly be a student of yourself. Catch yourself in the act of being you.
I like that.
Yep. All right, our closer question that we ask every guest we have since day one, and it's always fun to see people's answers. So the question is, if you could go back and start your career over again, but keep all the knowledge and experiences that you've gained from your years of life and working, is there anything that you would do differently, and why?
I love that question. And it's challenging because it does tie into regret, right? It's like one of those things like, wow, I wish I would have taken this path or that path. And so if I do allow myself to go there sometimes, it's like, I love the military. Maybe I should have just stayed in and pursued leadership through an officer role. Maybe I should have stayed in academics and made an impact there. Maybe it would have just been a lifestyle, just keep things simple. Don't start a practice. Just like do my shifts and express myself in other ways. Mm-hmm. I ultimately feel that whether I can look back and see bad decisions or good decisions professionally, and I feel like I've learned from those, and so that's what I'm carrying forward. I actually don't spend a ton of time wishing I would have done this, that, or the other. Where I've spent most of my reflective time in the past, say, 10 years, it's really been around decisions and behaviors as a husband and as a father. Mm-hmm. Now, that does those were affected by my career choices, but I think even accepting that I went into fields of work that were complicated, so military with deployments, hospital work, having kids while in med school and residency, and my wife gets tons of credit for her endurance in that process. Mm-hmm. She did one day say to me, "David, when are you going to realize that I'm a settler, not a pioneer?" Because always going on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But I think where the reflection has been has really been not so much on, okay, I wish I would have spent more time at home, or I wish I wouldn't have done this. I mean, I chose fields of work that were very complicated and difficult. It really gets more about the relational dynamics, maybe the ways I've responded to my wife or ways that I parented my boys. And so I've had an opportunity to spend a lot of time, in particular my wife and I are always talking through this stuff, but with my sons, to go back with them now as men, grown men, and say, wow, I really wish I would have responded differently in this circumstance. And boy, when I really came down authoritatively in this season of your life, I was actually just really afraid. Yeah. I was afraid of what was going to happen. And maybe I was going to lose you. Maybe you were going to get hurt. Maybe I was going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And my experience in that is all my kids have been so gracious and so welcoming of that, and so enjoying even my own evolution as a person, my own transitions of growing and understanding, and being able to express openly that I'm afraid or I felt anxious or those types of negative feelings that were always hard for me to admit have been really freeing, and so it's really that. What I'm most grateful for, and I still have work to do, is that always keeping the redemptive work of reconciliation as a primary function of life. Mm-hmm. Is that the knowledge and the intimacy that I share with my sons now is not because I was such a spectacular father. It was because we've healed from when I wasn't a spectacular father. It was the sharing of, I'm sorry and I forgive you, and now we know each other more deeply. And so I think from a career standpoint, I made hard choices, did some hard things, and I can pick that apart for sure. I feel like I did exactly what I was supposed to do in the end. Mm-hmm. Where there's room to really, I do want to carry wisdom with me forward in my business decisions too, because I've made bad business decisions and now I want to make good business decisions. So I want to bring that wisdom forward, but it really is more about tending to the most critical relationships in my life.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
Wise advice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, David, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
It's great. Loved it.
Yeah,
Great to have you with.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing your heart. That's it for today's conversation with Dr. David White. I hope you found his perspective on medicine, leadership, and the evolution of what it means to truly care for people as meaningful and insightful as we did. From high-pressure environments and special operations to reimagining care through Aspire Care, and now stepping into a new chapter with Fat Koi. His story is a powerful reminder that growth often requires us to rethink not just what we do, but why we do it. You'll find all the links to connect with him and to learn more about Fat Koi, as well as to connect with SB & Lattice in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with us on Beyond the Deal. Until next time, keep going, keep growing, and keep building your story.